Stephen, thank you for joining us here this morning. We appreciate you doing this for us. And why don't you introduce yourself to some folks? Tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your shop, Stephen.
Okay, well, I appreciate the opportunity to tell you what we're about. My name is Stephen Nagel. I'm the CEO and president of CTM in Frankfort, New York. We are a precision machine shop who also do some fabrication as well. We cater mostly to aerospace and specialized OEM manufacturers to
Yeah,
make any and all parts that go into their product.
yeah. And you guys really do have a top-notch operation, Stephen. One of the things I've done, I did a little tour around the country, I think a couple years ago, and stopped by and saw your shop. And I will say you have a very impressive shop and highly organized, very neat, very clean, very professional. So you guys run a very tight ship up there. So kudos to you on that for sure. So Stephen, we wanted to talk a little bit about your experience with VPS, the velocity pricing system, and kind of what that's done for you. And we have the graph here, and we're certainly going to get into that. But if we could, let's rewind the clock a little bit. Can you think back to when you first signed up? What was your starting point, and did you have any hesitation about signing up? And then, kind of ultimately, what got you over that threshold, and what made you decide to sign up and go forward?
Well, uh, you know, getting to that point was first finding out about you. And after
Mm-hmm.
finding out about, the science of business and the velocity pricing schedule or system, uh, I was drawn to it just as I was drawn to the book, The Goal. Um, and as you know, and I know we're going to get into, when I started looking for solutions or for help, quite literally, we were less than zero. So uh, I knew, as well as my brother who works with me, knew that, albeit we believed that we can't do any worse. Uh, so let's give it a shot. And that was probably the best decision that we made as, we look back on these last 2 years.
Yeah, and with the graph in front of you, would you say that it worked out for you? Did it deliver?
I think that is quite evident by what you see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just a totally different spot. You added 24% return on sales in under 12 months, going up to about, let me read the graph there, about 10% in 11 months. And then you didn't stop there. You went on and doubled it, your profitability again, which is phenomenal. So, yeah, quite an impressive graph.
Yes, and the whole process you would think would be stressful, but uh, you guys give it to us in bite-sized manner that allows us to assimilate the information slowly but steadily, and it just becomes a part of the fabric of our business. And it's really been a pleasure to do what we have done thus far, and then to do more.
And Stephen, let me ask you this then. So, in order to do this, what was the time commitment like for you? Was this kind of an all-encompassing effort, or were you able to fit it in with your existing schedule, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I really think about what we were doing here together the same way that we took on, our ISO and AS 9100.
Hmm.
You have to just take it to be a part of your culture. So it's not that you have to do something. It's just that this is what you do, and you don't necessarily have to do it, every day for 2 hours, in order to get these results. But you just have to do it consistently, and whatever consistent means to you, daily, weekly, biweekly. Either way, if you follow the system, I believe that the results are guaranteed.
Well, and Stephen, you mentioned building it into your culture, and I think you guys have done an excellent job of really leveraging the concepts inside of VPS and not just keeping it. What we don't want with VPS, and I think what we've done a decent job of, is kind of making VPS very grounded in the real world and kind of tactically available to you. So it's not an exercise in theory. And actually DPS was developed by Brad and his very own business. So it kind of came off of the shop floor, if you will. Have you found the principles and the tool set that we have in VPS? Is it practical and pragmatic to you, or is it kind of ethereal and hard to wrap your head around? How do you view it?
As far as the actual tools specifically that you offer and you provide, I find those very easy to use and not difficult. I guess in conjunction with that, if you wanted to really go on the theoretical side, that's what's really neat, that you and Brad can take you down the exact road to give you all the information that you would ever want to know about the tool that you're utilizing today.
Yeah, and I think you've had great success and have enjoyed. I know one tool, just in working with you, that's been beneficial has been the price picker tool. And I think when you saw the quick quoting and some of the things we had there, I think you described it like being a kid in a candy shop. Has that helped you in quoting?
Every day, and when I see a pile of quotes now, it's not like it was 2 years ago, where I would lament and really burden myself in saying that, oh my God, I have all those quotes, I must do them. And now it's just a matter of running through the process and getting them done, and just continuing to keep the sales funnel full and looking forward to getting more requests for quote.
So, Stephen, that's interesting. Do you feel like when you're going through the quoting process that you have more confidence or a better sense about the business, what works, what doesn't work for you guys, and has that translated into more pricing discipline for you?
I believe it has, as well as the fact that you need to know your strengths, and by going through the system, and doing all the legwork, you understand what your strengths are, and you understand what your weaknesses are, whereas
Mm-hmm.
you know where you can attain the best dollar per unit. So in those particular cases, it's very simple to determine what price you should be putting on a particular job, and then attaining that number throughout the process.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of learning the strengths and weaknesses there. Are there any kind of insights you might share with us about what you learned about your business and going through the process? And, as the business owner, what did it give you in managing the business?
What was really neat to see is what mix of business was appropriate for what we are, and what we have determined, being the custom sort of shop.
Right.
That in turn allowed us to provide the appropriate target on the marketing side, as far as what type of work we were attempting to go after with velocity. And then throughout the process, we actually have had other customers and other work that we have determined, both theoretically and to the number, to say, hey, listen, this is not our job mix, and we we'll finish the work naturally because we're on contract. But then, when the next RFQ comes up, we know what we are good at and what we're not, and we're very conscious of telling and being honest to our customer about that.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, when I look at your graph, I see that you're doing really well. Does this mean that you simply got there by way of price increases? If I'm a potential prospect of yours or customer of yours, Stephen, I might be a little leery. So did you attain these results with just simply price increases, or how did you get to this level of profitability?
That's a great question, Paul.
Well, let me feed you an answer, perhaps. Go ahead, Brad.
Since we're here today, because it is true that people earn the number, they don't raise prices to get to the number. Yes, sometimes there's pricing, but a lot of it's more mix selection, productivity improvements, understanding what you're good at, improving at what you're good at, so that nobody should be afraid. In fact, what you want in a good supply chain is a healthy supplier.
That is true. Whereas, we have those customers that we have long-standing orders with, and they're not accustomed, and nor will they allow price increases. So through the pricing velocity system, we actually could look to productivity changes and differences, and looking at some of those places where we never would have looked prior, to say, hey, this is how we can make this particular job move through our facility much faster, therein increasing the throughput margin and allowing us to attain the number without any price increase at all.
Yeah. Well, and that can be, it's so counterintuitive. If you'd have said, how can you bring in more money? The natural answer is, Jesus, do a price increase. But, to your point, that's not always an option. And even if it is, it's sometimes not an option that you want to pursue. And having the awareness of where you kind of have those relief valves, if you can't get to the number with pricing, which is the case in over half the time, I'd say, you kind of retool and look at things differently. So there's productivity, market segments, customers, and job mix. All that plays into it. So I think you guys did a very good job of that. And I do know you've had customers that, over the course of working with us, you've had customers that were in dire financial straits. They were almost going bankrupt, and a company that's facing that certainly doesn't want a price increase. And you also got very large customers too. So I think you guys have done a good job of navigating and knowing, hey, not everything's a price increase. Sometimes it's on us to look internally and make it happen.
Another question that I'm going off of that topic. I think the prevailing way people try to improve their profitability is by cost reduction. And we don't have cost reduction as a methodology at all in velocity pricing system. We have productivity improvements. We have customer and market selection. We have job mix selections. It's a different way of thinking about it. Did you feel like anywhere along the line that you wanted to do cost reduction, or were you able to kind of get away from that as being first option?
No, specifically not thinking about cost reduction at all. What the main focus was, focusing on the finishing. So everyone in the organization knew that, that was my new mantra, and they would come up to me and say, we can get this done, this much faster if we had this particular special tool. I said, do it. So, within reason, but if we could get whatever job that was out sooner, the better. And that's what we all focused on.
Well, and a lot of it's not uncommon for clients to have a kind of a surprise along the way. Especially in terms of the mix of business. Something like I always thought large run jobs were more lucrative and more profitable, but when I look at it now, I find that actually it's something completely different. Maybe smaller run, more custom work, and I think you guys have a very unique skill set. I mean, you have a lot of qualifications and certifications. You're AS 9100 certified. I believe you have an FFL. Um, you know, and you bring all. You also have a lot of capability. I think you have EDM, milling, machining. You have as part of your supply chain, your vendor base, you have a plater, I believe, and so you have a wide range of capability, and you have the ability to bring that to bear for your customers. Not only the capabilities, but also in a very short lead time, or to meet kind of one-off orders or backup orders. Um, so have you been able to take some of these concepts and, one of the things about cost accounting is if something doesn't cost money, it's kind of hard to value. If let's say you rush an order and you expedite it, well, what's the value of that? I mean, what should the gross margin percent be? Do you feel like you have a better answer for those value added items in using this process?
I definitely do. And I hate to go back to bringing it up as a culture, but getting away from that cost accounting and trying to educate everyone within the business to understand that it's all about the throughput. It's all about focusing on finishing. So you have to get away from believing that one job costs you too much. It's all a zero sum game to get to the level that you want to get to.
Yep. And that's a huge paradigm shift to kind of jump out of the cost world to the throughput world. Did you find that easy, or what struggles did you have along the way?
Yeah, that part's not easy, and it's not easy to this day. Not only just for myself, but for our entire organization to get away from that and to understand, the difference between the throughput margin and some fictitious cost that your system says something cost.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I don't. Brad, we're going through and we're changing a couple little things over time, and Brad was making mention of how he's used to a certain numbering scheme and how it's kind of hard to adjust. And we have a client that's also he's very attached to Lotus 123. I think from the 80s, an Excel spreadsheet program. For those that don't know, and he's still using it to this day, and he just can't make that mental flip to Excel very easily. And for me, I'm a younger guy. I think I would like to think I could make changes easier, but it's difficult changing, and especially when you like with cost accounting, it's in your ERP. It's how you've quoted. You've done it for multiple years, maybe even decades. It's what's on your financials. People use it in taxes, and so it does take. I know for me personally, it took a while to you kind of get that first aha, but then to really let that paradigm sink in, it takes some discipline and some effort to kind of, you kind of always got to put your training wheels on, go make a few mistakes and come back and learn from it. Does that resonate with you at all about the process, or do you see that differently?
Definitely so. And, whereas when we first met and, I was undertaking the learning process and going through the videos, that I'll be honest, that necessarily wasn't that easy, probably based more upon, my family schedule and, they want daddy around and all that sort of thing. But as long as you carve out a little time to really listen and understand, I find those videos just an awesome knowledge base. And I frequently go back to the ones that, throughout a week, I'll say, I remember they talked about this in one of those videos. So I consistently go back and watch them again.
Well, so Stephen, if you were talking to, let's say, just another business owner, what would you share with them about BPS?
Well, the first thing I would do is make sure that they weren't direct competition with me.
Very
but
heavy up.
uh,
Yeah.
other than that, I would highly recommend the system, as well as I have done so um, to companies, to businessmen in my area. I tell them, from day one, it's it's not about the total amount of gross sales. It's how much money you really make, right? You want to make money. And so often, and I was a part of this as well, we care about, some big number, but in the end, it doesn't matter. If you're not making money, it doesn't matter. What matters is making money. And with the system, you will make money.
Well said. And Stephen, I have, just personally too, I think we've all been there to a degree, and I would call it just being distracted. But I've seen companies that had the top line. We're a $20 million top line company. You're like, well, that's cool. What'd you make? Oh, we lost money, but we grew. And it's like, look, man, hold up. Going back to the book, The Goal, written by Dr. Goldratt. The goal of any company, and there we can add some things to this, but is to make more money now and in the future. And if you're not making money, it makes it tough to run the business. It makes it tough to pay the bills. And there's a lot of good, nice to do things we'd all like to do. We'd love to pay more. We'd love to have more time off. We'd love to have newer facilities and newer equipment and all those things that come with it. But the catalyst for all those things begins with making money. And as you said and put it very well, hey, if you're not making money, it's not worth the effort.
That is a big 10-4.
Well, Stephen, one other thing I want to ask you. It's funny when we tell folks that we do pricing. One of the kind of pushback points we get is to say, "Oh, well, you're just going to tell me to raise prices." Is BPS just simply raise prices and go on, or is there more to it than that?
Sure, there's a part of that happens, but it happens organically. The raising of the prices, but also, you do find, let's say, repeat jobs that when your customer asks, that they're all in the same boat, and sometimes they need a little help, and you can be very honest when you look at the numbers through the viewpoint of the velocity pricing system to say, you know what, I can help you, and this is why. And there are times where you can't. But with the system, it gives you another set of glasses to look through that are completely 20/20.
Yeah. I've often shared with folks. I think I shared it in the video series. When I was in high school, we had to do this. They brought the state patrol out, and they put the beer goggles on us, and they had us drive a golf cart, slalom through the cones. And I did it, and I was like, "Heck yeah, man! I think I did it." And you look back, you've hit 4 out of 5 cones. You're like, "Oh, maybe not." I kind of think that's the same experience. You kind of get that new set of lenses, and finally, you get some clarity about where the money's coming from, who's a good customer, who's not. And once you understand all that about your business, it really, like you said, the pricing's kind of organic, but it gives you so much, I think, more confidence in getting the prices you need and the prices for what the value is you're providing.
Exactly. Where not everyone will agree with your pricing, and that's just I think intrinsic to operating a business.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Brad's big quote is, especially when it comes to marketing and pricing, some, not all. And if you kind of have that understanding and what it takes to have enough, which comes from understanding your business financially. I think I've had the adage before and the mentality of we wanted to win every single job that touched our door. And when I look back on that, I kind of say to myself, well, why? Just because someone gave me an RFQ doesn't mean it's work I want. It doesn't mean it's at the price I need. It doesn't mean it's profitable to do. And, had I had this system when I was a controller, it would have just given us so much more clarity about how to direct all of our efforts. But yeah, I mean, it's just a totally different set of lenses for sure. Well, Stephen, we've been together, gosh, I think we're coming up on 2 years now. Looking back over the time we've had together and we've worked together, what would you say? I may not want to ask this, but here we go. What was it like to work with us?
Oh, what was it like to work with Bo and Brad? It's always a colorful moment of my day and my week. It was fun. It's really fun in the sense that there's a camaraderie and a sounding board. You're not always the pupil in the class, whereas sometimes you get to become the substitute teacher, and it's really it's educational all around. For you educating me and sometimes me educating y'all, which it's a great growing moment.
Well, and that's very true, Stephen. I mean, on my side of the fence, one of the best, one of the most enjoyable aspects of what we do is I just love learning about business. I love seeing how you guys work. I'm glad I got to come up, and thank you for having me up. But to see the shop and to meet you and your brother and Jim, it was great. And so, you can't do pricing in a vacuum. It's not the same answer for everybody, especially in a shop like yours where everything you do is custom. You really got to kind of neck down and customize even the pricing solution to what you're doing. And you've been an excellent client, and the results, I think, speak for themselves. I think we were looking at this graph last week, Stephen, and I think you wanted a copy to share with your brother. I think actually you called him into the meeting and had your brother Eric look at this with you. What is as you guys look back at this, what would you say your main reflection is? Is it kind of like, holy cow, how do we do this? Or was this expected? Or, what's your perspective on the graph?
It was one of those things that we knew as we were in the race, so to speak, that it was happening. But, and as you see by the graph, right, it's not a straight line. So it's sometimes awesome just to stop and look back and see how far you really came. And then to look at what heights you did attain. And it's really cool when you stop and look.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think you guys have one of the most impressive graphs we have here. So, I mean, and again, that just speaks to you guys. People ask us, do all the graphs do this? And the answer is no. There are some graphs that flatline or stay where they're at. And the reason is because the people stay where they're at. They don't do what you've done, which is put in the work, put in the effort, make the commitment, and then actually go implement. And you guys have done a very good job of that. So, Stephen, I want to thank you for your time, but one last question for you, man. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or any other thoughts or comments?
Well, if you have a prospective client who's thinking about it, I would wholeheartedly tell them, hey, you know what, give it a shot. Whether that's 1 month, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, try it. And I bet after whatever time frequency they choose, they'll agree this is something that we must do.
Well, good, man. Well, Stephen, Thank you again so much for your time. I know you're very busy managing the shop, but Brad and I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this for us and helping us out. And we certainly do appreciate your help.
Likewise, my friend. It's been a pleasure.